Hello and welcome to Channels Business Global with me, Simon Pusey, from our studios here in London. As you can see, my colleague Juliana Olayinka is not here with us this week as she has been busy gathering the business news on the sidelines of the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Coming up on today's show, Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu tells the UN he is seeking to address regional economic problems to re-establish constitutional order in West Africa. The ECOWAS chairman has enjoyed the support of a large delegation from the Nigerian government in New York. Juliana has been catching up with them. And away from the high-level debate, prominent business leaders have been gathering to foster dialogue and enable effective partnerships for positive social impact. The annual Concordia Summit is one of them, and we will be sharing the highlights with you. Then later, we'll be looking back at some of the business stories that have made headlines outside of Midtown Manhattan. But first, Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has told the UN he is seeking to address regional economic problems to re-establish constitutional order in West Africa. The ECOWAS chairman has enjoyed the support of a large delegation from the Nigerian government in New York. Juliana has been catching up with them.
What you need, closely, is boldness and being a fearless investor to really cash in the team. Nigeria is not a wicked lady. What is wrong with us in the past is consistency in policy, lack of consistency. Double taxation, unfriendly exchange rate environment, corrupt, not sure exchange rate, corrupt subsidy. That's where we are labeled perhaps one of the most corrupt cities in Africa. Those two items can make you sad. But it takes a bold endeavor to reverse the course of the nation heading for disaster.
Mr. President is a Democrat. He believes in the free market, and his plan is to yield ground to the private sector, whether it's brownfield, whether it's greenfield, licenses, spectrum, concessions. Nigeria is open for business. You will keep the macroeconomic environment stable, and you will continue to advocate for you to be able to invest safely and profitably, because the key to his plan is effectively foreign direct investment coming into Nigeria, setting up facilities, setting up service centers, and benefiting from a stable environment and benefiting from the huge pool of talent that is there. That's the basis on which we're here today, and it's very interesting that we are at the NASDAQ building, and NASDAQ is, as we know, is tech heavy. And when people ask, what did Mr. President do in Lagos? And they look to say that what he did in Lagos, he wanted to do in the rest of the country. The bedrock of what he achieved, just at the turn of the century, was based on technology, was based on investing in harnessing technology and robustly applying it to government activity, government services throughout. And what he has done once before, I'm sure we all believe he can do it again. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, protocols. Follow-Wave organization is the embodiment of the Nigerian spirit, right? Resilience, innovation, and creativity. In the last 7 years of Follow-Wave, we've been able to build infrastructure and technology that are used by US companies and Nigerian companies as well. If you go to an Uber and go to New York, you're a Follow-Wave customer without knowing it. Why? We power US companies like Follow-Wave, like Netflix, Microsoft, Uber on our platform. But beyond that, we also power Nigerian companies. Over 1 million of those ones across Nigeria today who get paid and pay very far away across Africa on one infrastructure. The average small business in Lagos or in Kaduna can have customers in New York because we exist today, all by what technology. Leveraging on our banking platforms and banking partners, we're able to build technology that makes payments simple and easy across Africa today on one infrastructure. On May 29 this year, I got so many phone calls. Why? They were saying Nigeria is changing for the better. There's hope in the air. A lot of venture funds are asking to come to Nigeria again after they've been away for a while. That for me is massive optimism for Nigeria and for our startup and ecosystem. I'm proud to be representing a Nigerian here today, who is now vice chair of the chamber, the US Africa Chamber, and which is, in my opinion, what Nigeria should be, right? And we're proud that Polaroid has shown that it's possible to be a Nigerian company from scratch in 7+ years and grow to the largest payment network in Africa today. Thank you, Your Excellency. I'm proud to be here today to give you the opportunity. Thank you so much.
I think it's an honor, right, at this very important time to also be here with Mr. President. First, this will be his own first showing as the president of our country, and he needs all the support that we can give to him, and it will be nice for us to see him join his other colleagues worldwide to share his vision, to put a clear template of what he hopes to achieve for the country, even in a gathering, like this. So it will be, his own show. And coincidentally, I was also here last year as a final one for the former president. So outside of that is also for Lagos to be able to position itself for all of the engagement and the opportunities that an international, assembly like this offers. I have a few side meetings and side, events that I will be attending for and on behalf of the state itself, and there are 1 or 2 that directly with Mr. President. So in all, we're hoping that we can further open what the country portends, what the issues that we currently have, so that we can put our country at the global stage to be able to converse with other world players, but more importantly, for people to understand that Nigeria is open for business. Nigeria is willing and ready, to take its full place and have its full potential being recognized by other global players.
First and foremost, I think Nigeria has been the leading country in Africa in terms of our strategic position. I believe so far President Asuwaju have taken a leading role in Africa, not only in West Africa, and that is the reason why, coming from the G20 meeting in India, where we attracted over $14 billion worth of investment to Nigeria, I have no doubt in my mind here in the United Nations General Assembly, we will have a series of discussion with development partners, some very strategic countries that have history of strong relationship with Nigeria in terms of trade and investment. We are also going to look at areas, particularly some of us that are subnationals, that have accompanied Mr. President to this very important meeting. We also want to have some side meetings with other development partners that have interest in our own states, particularly coming from Kaduna State, where we have a very strong people that are looking at the state to continue our drive in terms of attracting investment in the areas of solid mineral resources, areas of agriculture, many other areas that are key in our own state. So I'm here both as someone that will sit down with Mr. President to look at how much Nigeria can benefit in terms of driving some investment to our state, as well as looking at Nigeria as a whole. So for me, we're very optimistic. Tomorrow, Mr. President will make his address, which of course I believe it will be very emphatic, and he has already done a lot so far in making sure that Nigeria is continue to be in a very strategic position, not for only Nigerians, but Africa as a whole, because whether we like it or not, Nigeria have a leading role in Africa, and President Asuwaju have now brought back Nigeria to its own rightful position in Africa and globally.
Yeah, it is an important event, and we're here to support His Excellency. As you know, UNGA is always a very, very important event. There are quite a lot of side events, that are taking place. His Excellency, Mr. President, is here. We have quite a lot of governors, so we're here to support. But in my own case, I'm here because Her Excellency, the DSG, invited me to come and participate as one of the council members of GABI, which is the Global Africa Business Initiative. It is an important, platform. It was launched about 2 years ago by Her Excellency Mrs. Amina, and this is an important platform for Africa. It is a platform, that will work towards achieving a lot of things in Africa, especially digital transportation. And we're going to discuss that, and we're going to discuss to see how we can add value to the resources that we have in Africa. Africa is sitting on huge our resources, but the problem is that we are not able to add value to most of those resources. Infrastructure, transportation. Infrastructure is key. We know that we have a huge deficit as far as infrastructure is concerned in Africa. So that is the platform that I'm one of the 12 council members that Her Excellency invited me to join. So we're here to discuss, and of course also to support His Excellency, as I said, because there are quite a lot of side events taking place. As you can see, we have a lot of governors here. We have His Excellency Abdurrahman Abdulrazak, the chairman of Governors Forum. We have His Excellency Mr. Jide Sanwo-Olu, Lagos State Governors, and also Gombe State Governor, and so many others. So it is to support His Excellency and also to support the agenda of Her Excellency.
Being at the table where policies, global decisions are made is very important for us as Nigerians, as the government of Nigeria. And I'm really very happy that the president led this very strong delegation to this place. Actually, we have multidimensional poverty in Nigeria, and we must be very truthful to ourselves. This is some of the things which the SDG intends to achieve. This provides the opportunity to network, to begin to really meet the right people who should come in to support Nigeria to achieve this. We've had several high delegation meetings on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, and they have also given timelines on which they will come into Nigeria to support us to begin to provide solutions to Nigerians. Of course, one of the things which we discussed elaborately is the Humanitarian and Poverty Alleviation Trust Fund, which brings a bucket of funds and gives us that leverage to be able to reach out to millions of Nigeria and provide solutions. The outcome of this meeting will begin to really manifest in Nigeria almost immediately. Of course, the president is an action president and is very, very committed to seeing that Nigerians get that renewed hope almost immediately. And so he has given timelines on implementation. He has given timelines on when he wants to see boots on ground in Nigeria in terms of improving the situation of Nigerians when you look at poverty, the economy, and other areas that are of importance to him. So for us, this is a win-win meeting, and we hope that the UN and other partners, including other nations that have had interactions with the president, will immediately start implementation on ground in Nigeria. We take the lead. They're going to support us all the way. They have committed to this, and we believe that we'll begin to see results almost immediately.
Coming up on Channels Business Global, away from the UNGA high-level debate, prominent business leaders have been gathering on the sidelines to foster dialogue and enable effective partnerships for positive social impact. The annual Concordia Summit is one of them, and we will be sharing the highlights that Juliana has captured for you, and we'll be looking back at some of the biggest business news stories of the week that have been taking place outside of Midtown Manhattan. All of this after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Channel's Business Global with me, Simon Pusey, from our studios here in London. As you can see, my colleague Juliana Olayinka is not here with us this week, as she has been busy gathering the business news on the sidelines of the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly. We will be sharing more from Manhattan in just a few moments' time, but before then, here's a breakdown of the biggest business stories of the week. Former Qantas CEO Alan Joyce has been paid $21.4 million for his final full year in charge, despite stepping down early amid a reputational crisis that saw the airline facing damaging accusations. The pay could have been higher, with the airline withholding $14.4 million as the company waits for more detail from an Australian Consumer and Competition Commission investigation. Qantas faces hundreds of millions in penalties over legal action from the consumer watchdog, alleging the airline sold tickets to thousands of flights it had already cancelled. Elon Musk has suggested that all users of X, formerly called Twitter, may have to pay for access to the platform. In a conversation with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the billionaire said a payment system is the only way to counter automated accounts. Since taking over the social media platform last year, Mr. Musk has looked to encourage users, which is now called X Premium. China's imports of seafood from Japan slumped last month as Tokyo started to release treated wastewater from the damaged Fukushima nuclear power plant. According to China's customs authority, imports of Japanese seafood fell 67.6% in August from the same month last year. China suspended all seafood imports from Japan in late August, despite Japan saying the water was safe and many scientists agreeing with the plan to discharge the water from the nuclear plant into the Pacific Ocean. The Concordia Annual Summit convenes the world's most prominent business, government and non-profit leaders to foster dialogue and enable effective partnerships for positive social impact.
I'm delighted to say he has sent us a video message, and even more importantly, his daughter Fatima. I know she is an impressive woman in her own right, though she does have big shoes to fill. And she is here to accept the award on his behalf.
I hope this award inspires investors to do more, as well as encourages those sitting on the fence to take a leap. Thank you again, and I wish you a most successful summit. Thanks, everybody.
This Global Affairs programme takes place in New York City on the sidelines of the UNGA, and delegates examine the world's most pressing challenges to identify avenues for collaboration. Let's return to Juliana, who was in New York this week.
Well, it's important to my father. He's somebody that puts in his all and giving back to the society. So it's a great honor and pleasure for him to see that his work it's being recognized right here in New York by the Concordia Summit. I think it's greatly important because for me it's a platform that gets you thinking. So perhaps I would say it's the Greenfield area where people start discussing things. Things may not happen right here in New York, but it's definitely a starting point for many more things to happen. I'm gradually getting involved in philanthropy because it's also my passion. I do it on a smaller scale, but it's something that is of great interest to me to give back to the society, especially being one of the biggest, or I would say the biggest African business. We have to give back to the country and the continent as a whole. So it's something that I'm very passionate about. I've attended quite a few things. We were at dinner yesterday with Gordon Brown and Sarah on education, and it was quite a great platform to hear the different people speak on how they've been able to encourage or improve education implementation across the world.
Firstly, it's wonderful to be here. I'm delighted. It's my first Concordia Summit, so it's really amazing to be here. I think this is such an important week globally in the world, where you have leaders and movers and shakers from across the globe who are coming together to think about change and to think about the future. And I'm really passionate, as you know, about youth and making sure that young people have a place at the table. And today, really, the session that I'm really leading on, or I've just led on, and others, is really around how do we make sure that the voices of young people who are are going to be there in the future are part of that discussion, that they are on the table making the discussions. I just said to the whole room delegate of people that in 50 years' time, we're making policies now that in 50 years' time, everyone who's on the table making those policies, I promise you, will not be here. Whereas the generation who are going to bear the consequences are not being spoken to, are absent from the table. And this cuts across every single country. And to be fair, it is no longer good enough. It is no longer good enough that we have leaders who are making policies, are creating stuff that young people who are going to bear the consequences are not being consulted. And we need that I want that to change. And the young people who you would have seen today want that to change. And I think that in the 21st century world, we need to demand better. We need better. And I hope that leaders listen to the voices of young people. One of the things that I've seen today that really blew my mind is actually that the weight of youth leadership is heavy. Young people there is a disconnect between the leadership and young people. And young people I don't want to use the word that young people are disheartened by what they see, but that's the truth, that's the reality.
We know and we want for UNGA to go extremely well, but here you're finding all of the people that want to collaborate together to make a change that is scalable, a change that really gets to where we want to be in terms of health, in terms of climate change. So it's super exciting to meet all the people, to listen to all the panels, but also to have the side meetings to find more collaborators and to find ways in which we can move forward. There is a lot of action that happens, but when you think that as Movement Health, for example, we try to go to a community in Ghana or to a community in South Africa, and we try to make change, that's less sexy than a big decision by UNGA or a big decision by a foundation that is very, very large and with a reputation of years. But a lot of small organizations, young organizations like Movement Health are having important conversations that show that we have already translated efforts into impact and that we are ready to do more of that. So don't think it's only about coffee. There's no wine around, but be sure that we are making changes and we're working together to make those changes. And for me, in a world that is so polarized, I think the beauty of being here is finding common ground. In that Venn diagram, we find where we're in agreement, we find where we can help each other, and we work towards that. We're working in 16 countries around the world. 3 of them are in Africa. We're working in South Africa, in Algeria, and Ghana. In South Africa, we're working on early diagnosis of HPV and breast cancer. We are working in Algeria on working with making sure that the systems are improved at the hospital level. And in Ghana, we are working with having control of blood pressure in pharmacies. So as you see, these are things that are getting to the people. These are initiatives that are getting to the people. We're super excited to be working in Africa. We think Africa has the potential of showing the rest of the world that you can do things, scale things up, and make a difference. So that's what we're doing, and we're wanting to add more countries.
Well, sadly, that's all we've got time for today. But as always, do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. My colleague Juliana Olayenka and I will see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channel's Business Global.